Do you think it's fun for listeners over the course of the last month of episodes to hear like the evolution of me getting sick, having a cold, getting over it? Like in the middle of Nick Cage month, it was like peak cold and like super nasally voice on that episode. I think that's fun for people to hear that.
I don't think it's not fun. I don't know if it's any worse than that episode where I had the really husky voice and you asked me to talk about the Superman trailer and I sounded like it was the most important emotional thing in the world for me.
You just
Like,
get
I literally
super
sound-
emotional. You really choked up.
But my voice is also like breaking up because I was so hoarse at that point. So I genuinely sound like I'm about to burst into tears over the Superman trailer. So like, I don't know that it's any worse than that. So
That is pretty good. But it's the price. We have to come in. We have to do this every week. We're contractually obligated. People depend on this podcast. We've created so many jobs with what we do here that there's just no rest for the weary. That's how important this is.
sure.
All right, let's just play the theme song.
We're not talking about the best of them. We're just talking about the rest of them.
Not the worst parts, but the best parts. And the best parts we have. The best of the rest.
Hello and welcome to Best of the Rest. My name is Chris Logan and I am joined as always by my bassist and co-host, Andrew Williams. Say something to the listeners, Andrew.
Gnarly.
Each week we take a second look at a movie that was poorly received upon release and challenge ourselves to only talk about the things we like and what the movie does well. It's Fake Bands Month, and this week we are talking the 1994 film Airheads. Andrew, what is your history with this movie?
I've seen it many, many times. I have watched
Was this
it a
part
lot.
of the Williams vault growing up?
I don't think it was in the vault. I think this was more like it was on TV, and I saw it a lot that way. And so it definitely, I don't think it was in the vault, but it definitely entered into my lexicon not long after that. And it's always something that, like, if I saw it was on a streaming service or I saw it was, I would watch it just because it's comforting in a way.
This is one that completely passed me by. I was aware of it. I knew it's about like a band that holds up a radio station, but I never saw it as a kid. I don't remember seeing it all over TV. I just never saw it. Just something I was aware that existed, but I hear for a lot of people, like, you said you saw it a ton growing up. A friend of the show, my wife, saw this a ton. I can tell because when we watched it together to get ready for this podcast, she knew every line of dialogue. It's something that she's very familiar with. In fact, the only way I was able to watch it is because friend of the show, my wife, has this on DVD, and it's something that she brought into this. It was part of her dowry, the DVD of this movie.
The dowry.
But otherwise,
part of the negotiations.
It would be pretty hard to find. It's not available for purchase digitally, at least not on the service I use, which is Vudu, Fandango. It's not on any streamers right now. I'm not sure what the deal is. If I had to guess, it's something to do with music licensing, since it says so many different licensed songs in it that maybe it's not worth the trouble to keep renewing that, at least in the studio's opinion. But I don't know. That's just a guess.
I want to go back a second. I just love the notion of, like, you guys coming, like, together in your relationship and you being like, here's my extensive collection of DVDs, 4Ks, and vinyls and comic books and everything. And she's like, I bring a DVD of the movie Airheads. It's like, all right, agreed. It's like, this is my contribution to the situation. But No, I know it's been on streamers before because I've watched it on streamers before. Like I know it has come and gone before. But yeah, right now, like I was kind of like, oh, this is nowhere. I was a little surprised by that. It's another one of those weird ones that's just kind of like slipped through the cracks. I feel like we've covered a few movies like that where just like it's the movies just aren't there. It's kind of wild. I feel like we just did one recently that was like that, where like you went looking around for it and it just wasn't anywhere. And I was like, that's strange. Like Wicker Man. Wasn't it Wicker Man? You couldn't buy Wicker Man on any of the platforms? You had to rent it somewhere or something?
I had to rent it on Google. Yeah, it wasn't even available for rent on Vudu.
Like you can't even, yeah, and I don't think you can buy it anywhere. So like, it's definitely a strange thing, but some of those movies slip through the cracks. This is obviously why there's, physical media supremacy. But it is tougher to find than I expected, but I also persevered and enjoyed as well.
Well, let's set the stage a little bit. This movie was released August 5th of 1994, made on a budget of $15 million at the box office. It only brings in $5 million. Pretty big flop in theaters. Critically, it's not well received. You could say this was critically panned. It holds just the 29% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes. You dig through those reviews, I mean, they're pretty harsh. Occasionally they're going to highlight one or two of the performances, but that's about it. It wasn't striking gold with anybody. And even the audience score, it's a little bit higher. It certainly has its fans, as we've mentioned a few of them already, but not. I think cult film would even be pushing it a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's definitely one that has its fans. I was actually a little surprised at that audience score, only 50%, which is, that means, half of everybody that watches it likes it. The critic response too. There's a biting satire that keeps threatening to burst out of the well-cast Airheads, but unfortunately, the end result lives down to its title in the most unfortunate way. Brutal. just brutal. Like, yeah. Man, that's mean. It made several year-end worst lists. It made it genuinely like, there's a section on Wikipedia for year-end lists, and it's all worst lists. That's just also mean. Like, just it's wild. This is one of those things that just is a little wild to me because it's one of those things that, like, as a kid, you watch something and you just have no barometer, and it speaks to just the general, the change in, social media and obviously things like Rotten Tomatoes and just, review aggregates and things like that, when this movie comes out as a kid and you watch it, like, you don't have this thought that, like, oh man, this sucks and nobody likes it. You just watch it and you enjoy it. Like, it's one of the things that, like, you go back and you look at some of those old movies and you're kind of surprised when you see, like, oh, that only has a Rotten Tomatoes of like 50. Like, it made, like, tons of, like, What Lies Beneath, I think, is a good one. It's like the Rotten Tomatoes score is like 50 or 55, but as we've established, it was one of the highest grossing films the year it came out. So it was a different time. Would that movie be as successful today? I mean, it's got Harrison Ford and Michelle Pfeiffer's in it, so maybe. But it's always nuts to kind of look back and be like, oh man, this is definitely a movie that I think found its life like on cable, and so I'm sure it's profitable and successful now. And I know there's a nostalgia for it now. Brendan Fraser gets asked about it occasionally. Yeah, it's but apparently not a lot of people coming back and saying, you know what, we need more Airheads.
Taking a look at the creative team, the movie is written by Rich Wilkes. Now, Rich is a screenwriter. He has a lot of credits with, like, I don't know, maybe stoner movies, maybe like, rock and roll movies, kind of like this, youth culture. And then, bam, he writes Triple X, the Vin Diesel movie, which just seems so out of nowhere given his track record. But needless to say, the man has continued to find varied success in the industry. So, good for him. Go to work if you can get it.
It is. It is indeed. Yeah, he does that first Triple X, and then The royalties alone, man, gotta be nice. But
What's the critic score on Triple X? Is that a future episode of this podcast? It's
probably
gotta be, right?
48. 48 with an audience score of 58.
All right, we'll be going to the Xander Zone at some point. All right, the movie is directed by Michael Lehman. Now, previously, he had already directed Heathers, a bona fide
Which is crazy. I
classic.
had no idea.
Not long before this, directed Hudson Hawk, which is a pretty famous Bruce Willis flop. Again, maybe another candidate for a future episode of this podcast. But
Screenplay by Stephen E. D'Souza on Hudson Hawk. So
we stand alleged. Continues to direct some pretty good stuff. The Truth About Cats and Dogs, remember that one from the 90s? And then the Josh Hartnett vehicle, 40 Days and 40 Nights. So some pretty good variety in that filmography.
Yeah, and then a lot of television credits, has largely been doing that in the recent decades. Has directed episodes of Heels, has directed episodes of Dexter Original Sin, which was the first of the several sequel Dexter series. Or I guess it's the first Dexter sequel series, and there's another one coming later. Episodes of Jessica Jones, Veronica Mars, Snowfall, tons of stuff here. So still out there, directing a lot of television now, kind of doing the prestige drama circuit. If you guys haven't seen Heathers, like, check it out. That one's that's a good one. Wild. If you can go in as blind as possible, I recommend it even more. Like, if you have no idea what Heathers is about, watch it with no knowledge.
Number one, Christian Slater as Jack Nicholson performance. You will never unsee it after that.
Yes, I know.
All right, Andrew, let's jump into this movie. Talk about everything we like, all the positives in Airheads. You ready?
Yeah.
Chaz Darby is the lead singer for a hard rock trio known as the Lone Rangers. He wants to land a record deal more than anything and figures the best way to get signed is to get radio play. The band sneaks into a radio station to beg the DJ to play their demo, but when they use toy guns to get their point across, the scene quickly evolves into a hostage situation. But along with the threat of prison time also comes notoriety. The very thing the band has been after. Andrew, do we make that joke again? Classic story, seen it a million times. Band holds up radio station. Band gets record deal.
It's a classic American story. I mean, you look back to what like, you know, John Steinbeck or F. Scott Fitzgerald, the struggle of youth against a system working against them. I mean, I can't finish this. Sorry.
Let's start by talking about this cast. And Andrew, what a cast it is. We're going to start with the high point, the best casting, best performance of the film, because every episode we recognize one person who goes so far above and beyond the call of duty that they actually elevate the quality of the entire film with their performance. And we recognize that person by giving them the Mark Strong Award. Andrew, kick us off here. Who is getting your Mark Strong Award for Airheads?
This is kind of tough. I'm giving it to Mike Judge as Beavis and Butthead, who call into the radio station at one point.
He nails that role. It's like he was born to play it.
It's almost, I would think he created those characters with the way he masters it. But no. This is quite the cast. We'll run through some of these names and run through some of these guys, but I will be going with what might be seen as a little bit of a off-grain choice. I don't know. Not really. I'm going with Steve Buscemi as Rex, is one of my, it's who I'm going with the Mark Strong here. Just because this is another one of those like layers in the career of Steve Buscemi. Steve Buscemi. I suddenly forgot how to say his name. But,
I think it's a shimmy, like a light dance. Steve Buscemi. Yeah.
Steve Buscemi. All right.
Just shake your shoulders back and forth. Shimmy.
Okay. All right, shimmy, shimmy, shimmy. Just because, like, the same year he does this, he's also in The Hudsucker Proxy. The year after this, he's in Desperado. 2 years after this, he's in Fargo. In 97, he's in Con Airs. And then by like 98, he's in Armageddon, The Wedding Singer, The Big Lebowski. And it's like, this man's career is like, you're never going to figure out what he's doing next. You just have no barometer whatsoever for anything that he's going to do. And and Billy Madison's the year after this as well. Which is odd that the three of that Adam Sandler and Steve Buscemi are both in this movie, and then Billy Madison is the year after it, where Adam Sandler is now this massive megastar, and don't get me wrong, Steve Buscemi is certainly famous now, but definitely not to that level. But I like his performance here. Obviously, he's like Brendan Fraser is playing kind of the more grounded, centered character. Steve Buscemi is kind of like leaning into all of this, and he's having a blast with it. He's got water pistols that are filled with hot sauce that he's using to hold up this radio station. He works at a toy store, but just the kind of weird energy he brings to this character, him and Adam Sandler's relationship, it's just funny because Sandler is so like meek and like cowardly here, and Steve Buscemi is bossing him around, which just becomes the inverse of almost all of their relationships going forward. Like, you compare this to like Big Daddy, where Adam Sandler is now like the cynical, like annoyed character, and Steve Buscemi is like the hapless homeless man that he just keeps kind of making fun of the whole movie. And so it's just a weird inverse to watch it, but I like Steve Buscemi. I think he's good. I like the energy he brings to this character, and I think the movie is 100% better having him in it.
Andrew, I'm agreeing with you. I am also giving the Mark Strong Award to Steve Buscemi as Chris Cornell as Rex. Truly uncanny. I love this character a lot. We'll talk about the whole band. The movie's called Airheads. It's all about them being dim-witted, but I feel like he goes beyond that. He adds these little things to the characters. Like, every time he gets a chance to be out in front of screaming fans, he always like poses like he has muscles doing like the strongman poses. I don't know why that cracks me up so much. Probably because he's like a super skinny, long-haired, geeky looking guy. I love how mean he is to his little brother. It's great. I don't want to. I like the whole band. I don't want to like be backhanded to them. I just feel like he's bringing just a little bit more than the other two are to the role and to the movie, and that's why I'm gonna tip it his way. I mean, this is a couple years after he's in Reservoir Dogs. Mr. Pink, my favorite Reservoir Dog there. I mean, we've talked about Steve Buscemi before. He's a alum of the show. We've had a chance to talk about him several times, I think. But who doesn't love?
No way to check.
Who doesn't love Steve Buscemi though? Like
obviously we talked about him in Billy Madison, right? Like, we had to have. Like,
yeah,
had
and
to have come up and like
in Con Air.
In Con Air, yeah, definitely. Like, okay, yeah.
I love him
like, we
in
definitely talked about this band.
In Big Fish. He's a poet in that movie that really cracks me up. He's great in everything, and he can be in any kind of role. He's kind of like Willem Dafoe in that way. I mean, he could be in a comedy, in a horror. Speaking of, have they been in a movie together? Why they need to play brothers in something? Like, they are two like strange energy, can be off-putting people, but also can be incredibly funny. I would like to see that pairing, but at any rate, yeah.
Apparently, there is a film directed by Steve Buscemi that stars Willem Dafoe. That Steve Buscemi plays a small part in, but yeah, they need to figure that out. Make that happen, folks.
There's my pitch. Steve Buscemi, Willem Dafoe brothers. Mark Strong Award. I love it. Love what he's doing here. Let's go ahead and talk about this whole band, though. We have the man, Brendan Fraser, as Chaz Darby, the lead singer and guitarist. And what do you think, Andrew? The biggest star at the time. I mean, him and Steve Buscemi are pretty close, but this is after Encino Man. What else is happening in Brendan Fraser's career at this time?
He had Encino Man in '92, and that was the big thing. He had a couple of movies he was in after that, but like School Ties, things like that. But Encino Man was the big one, and then Airheads is '94, and then I think The Mummy is '99, George of the Jungle '97. So this is him, I think, still on the rise. I wouldn't say Encino Man made him like an overnight sensation. Not that it made anybody an overnight sensation.
Sure.
But
With Honors
yeah.
is the same year, which is like on your way to being a movie star, you gotta star alongside like an established guy, and he does that with
you got to do the Dead Poet Society of your career. It's what you got to do. That's what
Joe Pesci is in that
basically
movie.
Is instead of Robin Williams is Joe Pesci.
God, I haven't thought of that movie in so long. I remember Joe Pesci is a homeless person, and at one point, like he gives a speech on Brendan Fraser's behalf or something. And this is what I remember. I remember watching the movie, and Joe Pesci says, like, he introduces himself. He says, "Well, I'm a bum," and like everyone laughs because I don't know. I guess because he said it like it was his job or whatever. And I remember asking my parents, like, "What's that mean? What's a bum?" And they're like, "Oh, well, he's saying he's a homeless person." I was like, "Okay." So why does everybody laugh? Like, I could not wrap my head around like the humor of that.
Someone being homeless being funny. Yeah.
Yeah.
Look at
yeah.
you. Look at you.
Is that movie well received?
Glory or
Sorry, we're going to go off on a tangent here. 22% critic score.
I would absolutely say that it's not.
Okay. Anyway, Brendan Fraser rules. I like him here. He's surprisingly a bit subdued, more than I really expected going into it. But I like that he has the most, I would say, genuine passion for the music, for the art, for the success of the band. I mean, he's still dumb. He's still maybe a burnout, but he is committed to doing this thing and doing it right, and you got to respect that.
I would say that he's the star of the movie, for lack of a better way to put it. Like, he's definitely meant to be like the center point.
Yeah.
And he's kind of the most, like, Steve Buscemi's character just leans into the chaos of what's happening. Like, he's running with it. He's having a blast. He's just running with it at every turn. Whereas Brendan Fraser's character is like, he wants this band to be successful. He wants this to happen. And so there's this kind of weight of like, this is the thing he needs to feel like he's finally kind of moving forward. Otherwise, his girlfriend leaves him. So he's kind of starting to feel like he is the thing that everybody says he is. So the success becomes a big kind of driving point for him. And so in that regard, that's all just to say that the character gets more focus, it gets more emotion, it gets more weight, where kind of as things go forward, the reality of the situation dawns on him in a way that it really doesn't for everybody else. So in that regard, I think he's got the most to work with in a way, but it does lead to him having an arguably more subdued performance because he kind of has to have that kind of, I don't know what the right word is, that kind of pensiveness about the whole thing.
Pensiveness.
Not what I said.
Adam Sandler plays Pip. He's the drummer of the band. He's Steve Buscemi's little brother. And he feels like he's playing an SNL character. I mean, it's very Adam Sandler. He's very got like the...
This is like 2 steps away from Canteen Boy. Like, that's kind of where it's like, yes. Just a few steps that he's basically just the meek, like, naive
real
child
shy,
who doesn't understand what's happening to him. Yeah.
Will break into his silly falsetto voice. At one point, he even gets to do like the most Adam Sandler movement. I mean, this is a podcast. I don't know how to get this point across, but everyone has seen Adam Sandler do it, where he hunches over like an 80-year-old man and he moves his hands back and forth at the wrist and twists his head. Like, I don't know what that is, but I've seen him do
It's
it a
the
million
robot.
times.
What are you talking about?
Is that what he's doing?
Yes.
It's so
It's
okay. That is so specific. I've never seen another human being do the robot like that. That is so
Okay, yeah, like
Adam Sandler.
no one does it else like that, but plenty of people do the robot. But yeah, like, and I love that. We'll talk about scenes in a bit, but I do love that bit because that's another Sandler cohort there that is interfacing with him there. But I mean, we spent a whole month talking about Adam Sandler. There's really not much more to say about the man, but it is interesting seeing him kind of decidedly in
Did we do Adam
a side
Sandler?
man
We
role.
didn't do it in Adam Sandler month.
We did Billy Madison.
We did SNL month. We didn't talk about him for a month.
It felt like a month. Was it not a month? Wait, because we
We
did
did
Billy
SNL-ish.
Madison. We did Tommy Boy. Yeah. Anyway, it felt like a month. Have we
No,
just done Billy
we probably
Madison?
could do it Adam Sandler month, but
Oh, we could, but for the love of God, hashtag VP. But anyway, we talked about him a lot on the Billy Madison episode just because he is a very formative comedian from our Ute. And he, obviously, there's not a whole lot else to say, but just that it is interesting to me to watch him because this is kind of one of the only big things where he's got like arguably a sizable role, but isn't meant to be the lead, essentially.
Yes.
Like, you get to a point with Adam Sandler where, like, even when he's in, like, an ensemble, he's still, like, the focal point. Like, and even, like, Going Overboard, that's, like, he's still kind of the main guy there. And then Coneheads is just, like, one scene.
yeah.
It's tough
But
to
like
say it's anything
Billy
else.
Madison
It's
he's
him.
the star.
He's the guy.
It's like a two-hander, like with Bulletproof, but he's always front and center after that. Even
and so
you look at posters for Airheads, like the original theatrical poster is just Brendan Fraser, shot from behind, but every promotional art after that has Adam Sandler and Steve Buscemi worked in because, they've all blown up since then. Which those posters crack me up because Adam Sandler, he plays the drummer and he's always like body drumming on the poster just to show that he's the drummer. It looks really stupid.
Yeah. So anyway, it's kind of cool to see Sandler kind of decidedly as part of an ensemble where he's not necessarily the star. So it's an interesting little ripple in his career, if you will. And like I said, because Billy Madison is the year after this. I mean, Billy Madison, Airheads is August of 94. Billy Madison is February of 95. So that's barely 6 months later, Billy Madison hits. So, like, this is, like, on the cusp of the Sandler mania hitting and taking hold. But, yeah, it's cool. It's just a fun little thing to see him do. And, it's cool. I got nothing else to say about it. But just, obviously Adam Sandler's Adam Sandler. He's definitely still playing a very Adam Sandler character here. But he's having a good time with it. And I would say, I think the chemistry largely between the three guys is pretty good. I think, like, they feel like a group. They feel like a band.
Yeah.
They feel like there's some real chemistry there. So
Michael McKean plays Milo Jackson. He is the manager at the radio station. You can tell from the beginning he's a little smarmy. He's up to no good. Turns out he knows that the radio station is about to be changed to a soft rock station, and he looks like he'll be the only one keeping his job, making out pretty well in that deal. This is a great casting, though. Michael McKean, I mean, he's been in everything, but this is Spinal Tap, of course, being one of his most well-known roles. So to see him going from, a hair metal rock and roll band rock star to like an aged radio manager that's turning his back on hard rock. I mean, you got to think that's playing into his casting a little bit. Alum of the show, we got to talk about him back on our Clue episode, and we've probably found excuses to talk about him probably every other episode because he's the man's a legend, and I love his performance here.
Yeah, he's perfect playing. This is a character that he's definitely played in a variety of different ways over the years, just playing he plays that smarmy jerk really well. Obviously, very different character from like Mr. Green and Clue, but very, like, you look at something like Short Circuit 2, he's playing almost the exact same character, except that one's a little bit more sympathetic. But you look throughout his career, Larry Dittmeyer from the Brady Bunch movie and this character are almost exactly the same. They're the same exact energy almost, as far as just general annoyance with literally everybody and all of that. But we've talked about him a lot before. Obviously, all of his mockumentary stuff with Christopher Guest. Obviously, this is Spinal Tap with Rob Reiner, but then later on going and doing things like Best in Show, Mighty Wind, things like that. Those are all just wonderful movies where he gets to be in these just truly insane performances, and he's always so good at them. Still out there doing his thing. I do love that Spinal Tap 2 is called Spinal Tap 2, The End Continues.
Very fun.
I just think that's a very fitting title. But
Now, Andrew, if you had to call it now, Spinal Tap 2, The End Continues, is that going to be a candidate for when we do Fake Bands Month 2, or is that going to kind of surprise us and be a sequel worthy of the original?
All right. Here's what I'm going to say about it. I feel like the way I'm going to feel about Spinal Tap 2 is kind of how I felt about Christopher Guest released a mockumentary for Netflix called Mascots. That was basically just Best in Show, but it was about a mascot show. And it was fine.
I enjoyed it.
It was very, very fine. Like, is it as good as Best in Show or Waiting for Guffman? No, but what is? And so for me, as long as I am having fun revisiting these characters, I don't need it to be as good as Spinal Tap was. Because here's the reality. It won't be as good as Spinal Tap. It just can't be. It's one of those things where, like, I'm not even trying to say that like in a mean way, but just you can't match that. But there's something about the energy of the characters. There's something about the chemistry they have together. So I'm more than willing to go along for the ride as long as everybody's having fun. Will it be a candidate for the show? I would say the chances are greater than zero, but I don't know that they're high. But I mostly just hope that I'm having fun watching it. The fact that Rob Reiner's involved, it's the original group, all kind of coming up with the concept. I would like to think they wouldn't do it unless they thought they had something pretty funny to do. There's been a lot of weird mock Spinal Tap reunions over the years. I remember the three of them did like an acoustic Spinal Tap tour back in like 2009. It was so weird. You were basically just watching these three old men just up on stage with acoustic guitars playing Spinal Tap songs. It was the strangest thing in the world. But then it led to a pseudo Spinal Tap reunion where they like released new songs and like performed at Live Earth and all this other stuff. So Spinal Tap is a weird thing, but I'm hoping for the best.
What's your favorite?
To be surprised.
What's your favorite Christopher Guest?
Best in Show.
Okay, I can't decide between Best in Show and A Mighty Wind. Those are the first.
A Mighty Wind is very, very good.
Those are the first two I saw. I can't even remember which one I saw first, but those two both hold a special place in my heart. But yeah, good stuff.
Best in Show is so good, and just because like it's the thing about the Christopher Guest mockumentaries that I love so much is that like everybody is so good in them. There is no slouch in any of his movies, basically. Like Best in Show, especially because you don't just have. You do have. I don't think Harry Shear's in Best in Show, is he? But obviously Christopher Guest is there, Michael McKean's there, John Michael Higgins is there, Catherine O'Hara, Eugene Levy. Like, it's just this, Parker Posey, these insane stacked casts that are just all equally, like, there's lines by everybody that I think are iconic and funny, and I love them all. So, for me, it's Best in Show. I love Catherine Coolidge's character, where she's like, we both like soup. We love talking. We love not talking. We can both just not talk for hours and still find things to not talk about. And I'm like, beautiful. Like, how do you even come up with that? Like, it's so good.
Judd Nelson plays Jimmy Wing. He is a record executive. At first, he wants nothing to do with the band, and then they get infamous from this incident, and suddenly he wants to sign them. He is your typical sleazy record exec. He's got the slicked back hair. He's got something up his sleeve. He's berates the band as soon as they do agree to a record contract. He's hitting all the notes, but played very well by Judd Nelson, a man who was he's got villain energy. You know, he slips right into this villain role. Something about his face seems a little mean, a little menacing, a little bully-ish. So I think it's some good casting here.
Yeah, I think he embodies the energy of this character perfectly. Obviously, Judd Nelson's career kind of speaks for itself. I mean, you look back at some of his iconic roles. Obviously, the most famous of all of them has to probably be Rodimus Prime from Transformers the movie. But hey, I know a guy. One of my friends is like 100% like he met Judd Nelson and had him sign like a Matrix of Leadership, had him sign like a Transformers Hot Rod poster. He was jazzed about it.
He probably
he
appreciates
actually,
that, right? Like signing
Yeah.
Breakfast
Oh,
Club
he, like-
posters all day.
Like he like gave it to us like I want you to sign this, and he was like, oh man, like where should I sign this? What should I like? What do you want me to put? Like he was into it. He was really, and he was asking the questions like, what do you want me to like? What quote do you want me to put? Like what do you want to do? So he went hard on it, but he was
cool.
actually just in town because the C2E2 they did the Breakfast Club reunion that was originally just going to be the four of them, but then they finally got Emilio to agree. And I was like, Emilio! But which I'm sure he never gets and doesn't drive him
He's
insane
gotta
at
be
all.
sick of that.
That's gotta be nuts. But yeah, and Judd Nelson just, you know, whether it's Breakfast Club, San Almost Fire, I mean, but even stuff like New Jack City or another potential candidate for our show, Steel, which we somehow never managed to do. I don't know how we never managed to do
It's
that,
on the
but
list.
we didn't.
We think athletes
God.
month, athletes in acting month.
What would that be? Space Jam? Space
We've
Jam,
done
Steel,
Space Jam.
Space Jam 2,
yeah,
Jam 2.
yeah.
Steel. I don't know. I know more athletes have attempted acting, but are any of them actually good at it? But
Well, we got all the wrestlers. You know, you could do Suburban Commando. You could do Scorpion King.
Unfortunately, the
Marine.
problem with Suburban Commando is obviously the problematic nature of it. You look at that cast, and you have to talk about the Undertaker, and that's a bit of a problem. But it's yeah. Anyway, not to get too far off task here, folks. We can brainstorm months on our own time. But anyway, Judd Nelson. Small role for the first like 2/3 of the movie, comes in big kind of towards the end of the film. Really brings up that sleazy corporate slime ball energy, slick back
And man,
hair
that's
that
the
looks
most
like,
90s suit. That thing is so baggy.
oh yeah, and we're not
Swimming in it.
it's not full Talking Heads big suit, but like it's getting there. Which is now a reference Chris understands.
I
but,
understood that reference, yes.
But it's yeah, he's perfectly cast here. He's got like the little like soul patch, like not the goatee even, but just perfect. Like just if I saw this man on the street, I would immediately be like, I hate you. Sight unseen.
Ernie Hudson plays Sergeant O'Malley. Alum of the show, of course. Ernie Hudson, got to talk about him back on Ghostbusters 2 as well as Congo, and we love the man.
Yeah,
he's great in everything he's in. This is no exception. He is basically taking charge of the hostage negotiating, talking with our boy Chaz, and it's great. I don't really know what to say other than I'm always delighted to see Ernie Hudson on my screen, and this is no exception.
Yeah, I have to say the same. I do want to also shout out, there is a brief cameo by another Ghostbusters alum. Harold Ramis randomly appears here as the very notable, they give him a chance to kind of prove he's not a cop, and he gets both questions wrong because he sides with Van Halen in the Van Halen David Lee Roth split, and then he confusingly suggests that God would beat Lemmy in a fight, not realizing that Lemmy is God. So it's just so they act like these guys are supposed to be like hardcore like metal rockers, and then you see things like that and I'm like, but we're still dorks, man. Like just such
Yeah.
nerds. But it's just a fun little cameo there. But yeah, Ernie Hudson, always happy to see him. Never gonna be sad. He will also he will be inheriting the voice of Combat Carl in the Toy Story
Oh,
franchise
yeah.
going forward, taking over the role from the late Carl Weathers. So I mean, if you're gonna do that, Ernie Hudson's a pretty good way to go with it.
And then Ernie Hudson has really good chemistry with one Chris Farley. He's Officer Wilson. He is a rookie cop that's thrown into the situation, and Ernie Hudson's trying to show him the ropes on the fly, how to stand up for himself, how to improvise, how to be a little tougher. And God, I love Chris Farley. I mean, of course, alum of the show from several things, but
Yeah, we spent a whole month talking about him, right?
He might have actually, well, like, as he came up in maybe 2 of the 3 we talked about, but yeah, we talked about him several times. Definitely, he's picked up a Mark Strong Award. Tommy Boy, I can't imagine we didn't give him one. I mean, this was my guy growing up. Still my favorite of the SNL boys, and he just, from the first frame he's on screen, you can just tell, oh, he's a rookie cop in over his head. He's wide eyed. He knows how to like play his angles and just look like he's in over his head. And just everything he does is hilarious. I really don't know what to say about it. Other than that, he gets one big scene that man really makes friend of the show. My wife cringe, really freaks her out. Whenever he learns to improvise and stand up to these guys that want to kick him out of a club. But I don't know. I love Chris Farley. I mean, it's not a huge role, but he makes the most of it. And it's just so obvious this dude is like a star about to explode.
It's always, you talk about it like we talked about it back in that month with like a character like Billy Madison. Billy Madison and Tommy Boy, obviously the similarities and just the general kind of strokes of the plots of those movies of sons trying to prove themselves to their fathers, one by going back and completing elementary school, the other by trying to keep his company alive after his father dies. Basically the same story. But just that the two characters are so odd, not odd, but just that Adam Sandler's character is kind of hard to root for just because he's so coarse, so rough around the edges. But there's something about Farley's character that is always you're kind of rooting for. And I think that's true of almost any part that he plays. Like, there's a wholesomeness that, like, underlines whatever he's doing. And even here, as he's playing this rookie cop that's kind of stuck in these situations that he doesn't know, you still kind of can't help but, like, be like, yeah, man, figure it out. Rip that dude's nipple ring out. Like, you're kind of glad that he figures it out, no matter what's happening. You're kind of into it. So, obviously, like you said, this is not his first movie. He was in both Wayne's Worlds and Coneheads before this. And then obviously Billy Madison the year after this, and then Tommy Boy the year after this. So he very much makes the jump the year after this, and then it's, you look at his filmography and you see how short it really is, and just it's sad. Like, it's one of those things where like you see the impact he made in the work that he did, and that's not an easy thing to do, to do this amount of work and have it be so iconic and lasting. But you can't help but look at it and be like,
we should have had
been a lot
decades
more.
more of this. Yeah, 1000%.
Like, he should, like, are the Grown-Ups movies better if Chris Farley's in them? Yeah,
yeah,
probably.
Yeah. Unequivocally, yes.
So it's, and like, we've talked about it on those episodes, but like Adam Sandler's song about Chris Farley, kind of like, those are the things that when Sandler pulls out stuff like that, I'm just like, dude, there's more to Sandler than meets the eye. It's easy to kind of write him off these days with just how he is, but with the kind of, the just general types of movies he makes. But there's those moments where you're just kind of like, there it is.
The man's an onion, Andrew.
He is. He's a real cake of a man.
Amy Locane plays Kayla. This is Chaz's girlfriend, ex-girlfriend, on and off again girlfriend. They're fighting most of the time. Andrew, you gonna give this to me? I spent most of the movie thinking this is Christina Applegate.
All right, you can have that one.
Okay. I mean, like, age-wise, I think she's probably a little bit older because Christina Applegate was probably still doing Married with Children here. Well, 94. I don't know. I think it lines up pretty well actually, but they look very similar. Granted, they've got kind of a similar look going, like with the blonde teased hair and everything. But this performance was a lot of fun. Just crazy, erratic. Like I said, girlfriend, ex-girlfriend, whatever. They hate each other, but they love each other. I love you, babe. The kind of relationship that we've certainly seen before, but yeah, don't want to date anybody in a band. This is what you get.
Yeah, and she was in jail until December of last year.
Okay. Do I want to know why?
Fatal DUI.
Okay, that sucks.
That happened in 2010, but the judge and prosecutors agreed in 2020 that the sentence was too lenient. So she went back and she served 2.5 years, got released, then went back, served about 4 more years, and then was finally released because New Jersey state law requires you to serve at least 6 years before you can get parole. So took some time. So I don't have anything else to say about her. But yeah, she does look like Christina Applegate.
Andrew, I think we've covered the main players, although I do want to shout out a couple more people in the radio station, mainly it's because of who they are or who they become. You got Reggie Cathy as Marcus, who is an employee there that...
alum of the show, Mark Strong Award winner.
Fantastic, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I always think of his role in The Mask, very memorable there, but just a legendary character actor, no longer with us, R.I.P. Reggie, but always good to see him. And then David Arquette plays a character named Carter, who's just like burnout stoner dude, possibly even dumber than our band. He gets released from the hostage situation, dumber. Wants to go back in. David Arquette, another dumber. Alum of the show, I think.
Screen 3.
There you go, Screen 3. But it's,
no love,
it's
no love at all for Joe Mantegna. He's the DJ. We just blew right past him.
Yeah,
he's got a more sizable role than Arquette and Reggie Cathy do.
The most notable thing for him is his name, because there's the
shark
that joke in Waterboy when he's like, I can't remember, he references Joe Montana. Is it Joe Montana would have ran for it or made? Joe Montana would have made that tackle.
Joe Montana.
And he's like, Joe Montana's a quarterback. And he's like, I said Joe Montana. That's is it fun when I recite jokes from other movies? Is that good podcasting?
It is. It's actually quite interesting because it reminds me that I'm not the only person that those lines live in the brain of full time.
Okay, good.
So I definitely have that boat. But like, I remember him from a movie. God, well, he's on television as he joined that show Criminal Minds, I think. But there's and he was Fat Tony on The Simpsons, which that's always a fun one. But there's a movie he's in called The Comrades of Summer. And this is a movie that lives in my brain rent-free for no reason. It is a television film where he is a Major League Baseball manager that gets fired from his job with the Seattle Mariners because he's got this terrible attitude. No team wants to hire him. So in a turn of events, the post-Soviet Russia is trying to field its first Olympic baseball team and hires him to do this team. So this was a weird little snapshot where we were like post-Soviet Union Russia, where we kind of thought they were all turning the corner. But there's a very, very funny scene that I will always remember. Like, this is a movie that you can't even buy like officially anywhere.
What's the name of this movie?
You can get VHS copies. It's called The Comrades of Summer, obviously playing on like The Boys of Summer, but like changing it to Comrades because it's about Russian baseball players. But there's a scene where like he goes to one of his guys and he's like, "Hey, do you know where my my Walkman went, and the guy's like, oh, what do you mean? He's like, yeah, I had like a Walkman. Well, you know where it went? And the guy gives him this elaborate tale of bartering the Walkman to get him like from a Walkman all the way to like a full-on baseball field, uniforms and equipment. Like, it's just this constant process. It's like, he's like, you got all that for a Walkman? He's like, no, I traded the Walkman for this, and then I was able to trade those for this. Works all his way up until he finally trades it for condoms, and then he's able to trade the condoms for everything the team needs. And it's just this absolutely insane process where the whole time Joe Mantegna is just looking at him like, what? And then he lists off everything he got for the condoms and then goes, oh yeah, and I got 2 Walkmans, and hands him one of the Walkmans back. And it's
How
like,
have you
beautiful.
seen this movie?
It was on HBO back in the day.
Okay.
Oddly enough, it is directed by a gentleman named Tommy Lee Wallace, who would notably previously direct Halloween 3 Season of the Witch.
Okay.
Anyway, moving on.
Let's talk about the scenes of this movie, Andrew, and let's just start with the best scene in the movie, or at least our personal favorite. So go ahead and kick us off here. When is this movie firing on all cylinders? What is the best scene of Airheads?
I think I just got to go with the finale when, you know, they've got this set up with Jimmy Wing now. He's telling them that they should, like, you know, they've got to do this video and they think they're going to perform live for this crowd. And before it can really go anywhere, they find out that it's all kind of a setup, that it's just like a staged video with lip syncing, which is deeply normal. But they still think it's selling out. And so they kind of trash the stage. They make a big mockery of it. They make Jimmy Wing look stupid. They kind of blow up themselves. They do a big surf onto the crowd. And overall, I think it's just that moment where, like, they finally kind of realize that, like, the path that was in front of them of kind of using this situation to kind of get the big record deal, all that, they're like, that's not actually what they wanted. And they're going to still do it their way. And then obviously the notoriety of the situation still allows them to be successful, but it's on their terms far more than just kind of falling in line with the record company expectations. And so in that regard, I think it's the perfect kind of culmination of everything the movie's been working towards. And yeah.
Yeah, it's a good time. It's fun. It's just the inevitable part of the movie, right? Where we get to hear this song that has been built up so much, and the band kind of gets what they want. I mean, I honestly, watching this movie, was kind of wondering how we're getting out of this. Like, not that this is like a thriller by any means, but, you know,
Right.
we know these guys are the protagonists, are the heroes. We want them to succeed on some level, but they are actively committing a felony throughout the runtime. So how does that really happen? And I do like where it ends up and how it resolves, where they gain fame and notoriety and a record deal because of the exposure, but they still have to pay for their crimes, and they end up going to prison where they play shows, and eventually they will get out and have continued success, but they have to do their time. And the little epilogue of sorts at the end, where we get to see them rocking out in their prison jumpsuits. I thought that was a pretty nice way to land this thing.
Yeah, I agree.
For me, I think I'm going to rewind it a little bit back. I think my favorite scene is sort of when things kind of finally start to go wrong. So they've been holding up this whole radio station with these toy guns filled with hot sauce, like we said. They've made all these crazy demands. They got their demands. They're riding high. And then Steve Buscemi's gun gets caught in the door, and the end of it breaks off. Everyone can tell now that it's a toy gun. So Reggie just punches him and runs out the door. This is where David Arquette's character escapes. And they've got to... This is one of those things where it's like, well, you know, based on the runtime, I know it's not over yet, but how can they possibly move forward now that, the jig's up? Through a series of events, they get their hands back on a on a real gun. And I love this because Joe Mantegna is the one that picks it up, who is a hostage, who is the DJ, but he's sort of been reminded about what really matters and music and what he really cares about, and this radio station is screwing him over, but these guys like have a rock and roll energy that's kind of inspired him, and he, the hostage, gives them the real gun, and it's kind of a nice little moment that is oddly earned in a movie that doesn't really ever try to reach too hard for any emotional depth. I'm still buying the scene where they had that bond. So for being able to pull that off, I'm going to say this is my favorite scene in the movie.
I think it's a good pick. I can't fault you for this one. I think it's a good spot because it is when you get a little bit of the chaos. Like you said, there's a point where you're just kind of like, what is the culmination of this? Where is this going to go? What is the deal? And I think this is it's a good thing to highlight. Obviously the relationship, obviously this movie is like anything. There's obviously moments of tension between the band. There's moments of tension with everything. And then this is kind of a moment where I guess they think things are kind of going their way and they're in control. And then obviously it just gets out of control when the kind of whole jig gets revealed. And it's good stuff. It's a fun movie, folks.
It's pretty fun. It's called Airheads. All three members of the band are pretty dumb and have their dumb moments. I mean, there's this running gag. I don't know, probably the best joke of the movie. The fact that the band is called the Lone Rangers and people are pointing out to them that makes no sense. You can't be lone and in a band. And whenever Joe Mantegna specifically is like trying to explain it to him, it just doesn't click with any of them. Like Brendan Fraser's like, "You lost me. I don't." They don't even understand like the irony of their name. It's pretty good, but I had to say probably Adam Sandler's character is the dumbest. If I had to rate them, and he's got some of my favorite lines. Like I love when again they're pressuring the DJ to play their song, and he asks them, well, "Who are you guys?" And Adam Sandler just goes, "My name's Pip." And he's like, "The band." What's the name of the band? Like, I'm not asking you to introduce yourself. And then whenever they're negotiating with Ernie Hudson, and they make all these demands, he's like, "All right, you gotta do something for me. You gotta give me a hostage." And Brendan Fraser puts the phone down, and he says, "We gotta send one person out." And Pip goes, "I'll go."
One of the hostages, doof.
Yeah.
That was the line I was going to bring up. Just because I think it's so funny. Just the way that he like resigns himself to leaving, and they're like, "No, you idiot!"
Like he really feels like he's doing he's taking one for the team by volunteering. It's so pure.
Yeah. I ain't farting on no snare drum, but I love the bit where like one of the things they request when they make all the list of demands is nude pictures of B. Arthur for some reason.
For some reason,
later,
Andrew, B. Arthur is the hot one, right? That's her role in the Golden Girls. Anytime, I mean, it's like it's the one Deadpool has a fixation on. Like, I feel like anytime you got to talk about a Golden Girls being attractive, it's B. Arthur. And I'm not saying that
McClanahan disrespect is just palpable here.
This is what the universe decided, and I don't think it's a hot take. That's all I'm saying.
All right, that's fine. Anyway, I do love when Judd Nelson's character like comes in later to the radio station and looks and he sees Pip looking at the pictures and he's like, "B. Arthur, outstanding," and just like keeps walking, and I'm like, Jesus Christ. Or when Rex, when they're making the demands, goes 67 copies of Moby Dick, and the radio woman is like, "The book or the movie?" And he's like, "They made a book out of that." That's a line that I have quoted about things more often than I'd like, where I will purposely talk about like an adaptation of something and be like, "They made a book out of it."
So Rex works in a toy store. It's how we get those toy guns. He's just been stealing toys from his work. And he brings a toy home for his little brother, Andrew. What toy does he give Pip?
the incredible crash test dummies. We just
They
talked
were a
about that,
thing.
too. Like, they were. Somehow, they literally made car safety dummies almost a franchise. Like, unbelievable. You really could, like, just throw anything in an animated series and it could last, except Dino Riders, which, to me, I don't understand how that one didn't blow up. It was literally dinosaurs with lasers on them. And somehow that didn't take off. But the crash test dummies got more out of it than that did.
Andrew, I know you want to talk about this scene. We touched on it briefly earlier. It's when Adam Sandler goes full Adam Sandler, does the Adam Sandler robot, I guess, as it were. He doesn't quite do the noises, but he does all the physicality. And the reason he does that is because he steps outside the radio station. There's one police officer there. They lock eyes. Adam Sandler takes a step. The police officer takes a step. And he seems to be shadowing him, copying his every move, when in fact the officer is just trying to prevent him from making a break for it. But Pip thinks he's playing a game of copycat, so he does the little robot thing. The cop pulls a gun on him. Pip runs back inside. But the reason we want to talk about the scene is because that cop is played by
Alan Covert.
Who would go on to star in, checks notes, every Adam Sandler movie after this.
Yeah, and then would go on to have, like, a singular chance at being the star of a movie in the film Grandma's Boy. Which I think is the one and only time he was the lead actor of a film. It is wild to me that, first off, it says he's 36 in Grandma's Boy. Is that accurate? No, he was over 40 when they made that movie. He was 42. But I literally just was talking the other night with one of my friends after our hockey game, and he was just like, dude, I love Grandma's Boy. And I'm like, what is it about that movie? Like, how? I don't know. It might be one that maybe I need to revisit.
I know we've talked about it in passing. I don't know if we've really dug into it. You know, we're a hashtag positivity podcast and all, but Grandma's Boy is a movie. Again, I've heard the reputation, and not a lot of people love it. I tried to watch it once when I was younger than I am now. More close to the target audience.
Well, if you're not watching it in this moment, Chris, you're younger than you are now.
Okay, all right, Andrew. Okay. Technically, you are correct. The best kind of correct.
Okay, guy.
Significantly younger than I was. You know, in my like early 20s, I think, when I tried to watch it. I turned it off. I mean, it did not click for me. But I didn't see the whole thing. Maybe it gets, you know, dramatically better after the first 20 minutes. I don't know. But Andrew, it sounds like you don't have much better of opinion of that movie, though.
It was another one that entered into the lexicon of being played at my house a lot. Similar to the Jack Black vehicle School of Rock. As such, the overexposure led to me growing to develop a bit of a distaste for them. To the point that School of Rock, I'm told, is very good.
It is very good. It might be Richard Linklater's like highest rated movie.
Look, all of you talked to my dad and decided to all collectively tell me it was good. That's fine. I get it, but I'm not going to fall for it. The gaslighting ain't going to work on me, folks.
One of my favorite moments in the movie is probably my favorite moment that's not doesn't involve like the main band. Let me make sure I get the actor right here. Would it be Nina Simasco as Susie? Is that sort of the ditzy girl that falls for Pip? So towards the end of the movie, where Judd Nelson is trying to get them to sign that record contract, and then they're all kind of weary because these guys try to screw you over. She chimes in to help. She says, "It's true. My ex-boyfriend Parker was a model, and one day they stole his shoes." And like everyone, like even the band included, stop and just stare at her like, what are you talking about? And then no one just moves on. That line really got me.
Yeah, that's pretty good. She has a couple of lines that definitely are just wait, what? But yeah, that's a good one. I do love when David Arquette's character like has a chance to run out of the radio station, and he's like doing like the slow motion Chariots of Fire run, all eating up to the crowd. But then like 3 minutes later is like, hey man, can I come back inside? Like he like realizes that like
That's
he's
where the
given up
party
the
is.
fame by running outside, and it's yeah, this is David Arquette, man. What is he doing around this time? I guess he was in Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which was 92. And I guess Scream is 96, so that's 2 years after this. But yeah, he is. Is there a television show he was on? Not really. Interesting. But yeah, he's. Does David Arquette blow up? Is there a thing that he's like, I don't know. Is there?
It's pretty big for a time. I mean, Scream really elevates his star. There's probably like a 3-year period where he was hot stuff.
Yeah.
He's in that, I forget how many miles it is to Graceland. 3,000, 1,000, 10,000?
3,000.
3,000 miles to Graceland. I remember him in that. This movie occasionally, it never really, I think I kind of said this earlier, it never really reaches too deep for anything. I mean, by design, it's just a lighthearted, fun comedy. But there are a few moments, especially with Brendan Fraser's character, where they kind of dig into like rock and roll, what it is, what it means to these characters. Like they're trying to convince them to play their demo, and everybody's giving a hard time. Like, what's special about you? What makes you different from all the other people on the scene or whatever? And he has a hard time articulating it, but I feel like what he's getting at is like, this actually means something to me. I'm actually passionate about this. I have, heart, for lack of a better word. And then they bring up, the classics, nothing like the Beatles, and he tells them off, and he's like, man, I've tried people like shoving classics down my face. Because what's he say? He says like, your music, is it even saying something? And he says, are you telling me that Purple Haze is saying something? And I really like that line because it's almost like, the way I read it anyway, it's not like any kind of disrespect to any classic rock, but we have a tendency to put these things on a pedestal, right? And look at them with rose-colored glasses and think they are much more than what they were trying to accomplish at the time. Which, for the most part, is just to have a kick-ass good time. And that's exactly what they're trying to do in the late 80s, early 90s.
No, I agree, and it's actually one of the it's you hear it now. It's it's not a controversial take now for people to be like, I can't stand the Beatles, whatever. But it's something that I think is interesting. Like you hear often about modern music. It's one of those things that like when you look back at the classics. But like I always love when people talk about how like they're like, oh well, they talk about how rap just glorifies drug use. That's one of my modern music doing this, and I was like, oh yeah, let's go back to the classics in the 70s where Eric Clapton wrote a song about cocaine called Cocaine. That was all about how cool cocaine was. Yeah, let's go back to that time. Like it's one of those things that's just nonsense. Like it's again, like I'm not saying Eric Clapton's song Cocaine isn't good, but like call it what it is. It's you can say that it's this great song that he wrote, and you could say that, but like there's this like you said, there's these like rose-colored glasses of like, oh, it's important. It's that idea of like it's important because it's old is what the argument basically becomes, and it's like, well, no, it should be important because it's important. It shouldn't be important just because it was released in 1975. And so I definitely appreciated that little conversation they had there too, just because there is this, and also just like people are like, oh, well, the music in the 70s was so much better, and it's like, well, maybe, but also like we've got 50 years between that stuff and now, so what's happened is the cream has risen to the top, and all the rest of it's been forgotten. Like, there was a lot of music in the 70s that people didn't like, people didn't care for, didn't make an impression, didn't last. But the passage of time has allowed that to kind of sink down, and you just remember the good stuff. It's that, this is
you rummage
everything in
through
the 70s was great. Yeah,
the 2 for $1 bin at any vinyl shop, and you'll see like dozens, not hundreds, of bands you've never heard of, no one remembers. Yeah, it was out there.
Exactly.
How about Kurt Loder? Just being on screen, man, that's a face from like my childhood. You know what I love about Kurt Loder is he was like the main news guy for MTV, but I feel like he is legitimately one of the most like well-respected anchors of his era. Like nothing else about MTV garners much respect, but I feel like Kurt Loder, that's a face I can trust. That's a man that's like taking his job deadly serious. I just love that. I mean, he's done tons of stuff in his career, but that's, I gotta imagine, for people of a certain age, just what they know him from the most. But I just love that he managed to like have such a sterling reputation for, again, being the anchor on MTV. It was super nostalgic to see that guy.
Yeah, just a snapshot of a very particular time.
A few other fun cameos. Lemmy shows up of Motorhead not long after their conversation with Harold Ramis that mentions him. Of course, we got White Zombie playing. Who else is in this movie, Andrew?
Galactic Cowboys portray the Sons of Thunder. Obviously, Mike Judge, not kidding. He actually does do appearances, Beavis and Butthead here.
Galactic Cowboys, can't say I've heard of them, but they're from here in Houston, Texas, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Cool.
Andrew, I am now a person that has seen the movie Airheads after hearing so many quotes and hearing it talked up so much. Glad I got it. Finally got that one under my belt. It's okay. It's fun. It's a good time. There's nothing. Like, I'm not shocked it wasn't particularly well received, but there's also like to appear on like year-end worst list seems a little harsh because this is the most inoffensive. This is like a nice, light beer, goes down smooth. It's a good time.
Yeah, like I was a bit surprised to see it on like all worst lists, just because I was like, all right, guys, like come on now, some respect, please.
Also released in 1994. Let's see, The Page Master, The Shadow.
Well, sounds like sounds like there was I guess not a lot of competition for the worst list based off that sample size.
Time Cop? Yeah, you're right. This is a good year for movies. What am I doing?
Oh, man. Something called Forrest Gump. Like, ugh.
Pulp Fiction, The Crow.
Ed Wood.
Oh, boy.
The Lion King. Terrible.
1994 month, coming soon. Well, here we are, Andrew. Brand new month, fake band month. This week, the fake band was the Lone Rangers. We just get to hear the one track from them. It's a pretty rocking track. I'll be curious as we make our way through this month to kind of compare these bands, see what the best fake band is that we cover. I think we're going to hit a decent variety of genres and eras, but it'll be a fun thing to keep tabs on.
They will. Maybe do a ranking.
Yes, stick around for that. But now, Andrew, it's time for you to enter AA. It's, of course, time for Ask Andrew, as we do at the end of every episode. And if you want to help me come up with these questions to spring on Andrew that he is contractually obligated to answer, you can do so by joining our Discord. There's a link in the show notes. But I've got a question for you, Andrew. It kind of comes from our Discord. There's a little bit of discussion on it today, but I really want to drill down on this. Wow. And as a reminder, per your contract, you can't say, I don't care, I don't know, move on. We got to get to an answer here, Andrew, okay?
Okay, can I ask something?
Sure, I'll allow it.
It's not the taboo thing, is it?
No. We've
Okay. All right.
covered
all right.
that.
That's it. No. Don't need to say anymore. I just want to know that's not it. Okay.
No, that debate still rages on, unsettled. This question, it's far more simpler, Andrew. All I want to know is, what is a movie franchise? Like, how would you define it? So I think maybe we start by maybe just naming some movie franchises. I mean, the MCU, probably the biggest one going out there, right? Movie franchise, yeah?
Yeah.
Fast and the Furious films, movie franchise.
Mission Impossible.
Okay. So, which give a definition to go?
I sort of know where this is going. So, the reason he specified that I can't say I don't know or I don't care was because that's basically what I told him earlier when he kind of broached me on a particular aspect of this question. The thing that would be an interesting question, I think, that would be asked is, do you consider James Bond a singular franchise?
Okay, that's the one that's given me the most trouble.
That's the problem, I think, because obviously the answer he's kind of dancing around, and the answer that he asked me, not dancing around, you're not being deceptive here, but the point that he asked me was, are all Batman films part of the Batman franchise? That was the kind of question Chris asked me earlier. So I don't mean to suggest that there was some chicanery or getting the questions ahead of the debate type situation going on here, but that was kind of the crux of this, was just, are all the Batman movies part of the Batman franchise? Now, my brain kind of wanted to say yes and no, because it has arguments for both. But the thing that kind of sits and causes the biggest flux in trying to kind of define is James Bond. And I think that's the question that people don't necessarily have a great answer for. Like, something like James Bond is a tough thing to quantify, because I would say James Bond is a singular franchise.
Yes, me too.
Now, James Bond has no crossovers, has no tie-ins. Every single movie is James Bond. The difference obviously being that there's very little connective threads from actor to actor outside some minor bit parts. The stories certainly, at least until Daniel Craig, don't really stack upon each other. But at the same time, James Bond is decidedly James Bond. So I would say James Bond is absolutely, every James Bond movie is part of the James Bond franchise. Now, Batman, that becomes a tough thing to say, because there have been now 5 technically, distinct Batman film franchises that have, we've rebooted Batman 5 times, essentially. Because if you want to give Adam West the credit that the 1966 Batman, you've got that. You then have the Keaton, Burton, Schumacher films. Then you have the Nolan films. Then you have the DCEU. Then you have Matt Reeves, Robert Pattinson's Batman. So there are 5 distinct film versions about Batman that are intended to not be the same version of the character. But is that all part of the Batman franchise?
I mean, it's basically doing what 007 is doing. You've got one person in the role,
that's
and
kind of
every
what I
few
mean.
movies you reboot it, but it's still the same franchise. Like, as film fans, as moviegoers, as whatever you want to call the normal people, what we would what my gut says is, 007, that's a franchise. Batman, you got the Nolan franchise, you got the 90s franchise, like that. I would break it apart. Spider-Man, same thing. You got the Raimi trilogy, it's separate from the Amazing movies. I don't think of the Spider-Man franchise as all-encompassing of all movies with Spider-Man, but the studios certainly do. You know, Warner Brothers certainly thinks of the Batman franchise as any movie they can make with Batman in it. So let's try to come up with a definition here. So what I came up with earlier today, and maybe we could kind of use this as a jumping off point here. I said movies starring the same character / universe of characters made by one studio. So either the same character or the same universe of characters. So like, you know, the MCU doesn't always have the same characters, but it's the same universe, so it's the same franchise. You know, the Godzilla movies might have different, you know, monsters or whatever, but it takes place in the same universe. So either same character, same universe of characters. But that excludes 007, I guess, because they reboot it. Made by one studio, because you wouldn't say like the Toho Godzilla is the same franchise as, you know, American Godzilla, right?
All Godzilla.
The Godzilla franchise, you would put them all together?
Do you consider Godzilla -1 to be the same franchise as like Godzilla versus Biollante?
Well, you can probably further divide the Toho, but I certainly wouldn't combine the MonsterVerse with the Toho stuff.
Still Godzilla.
I think to be a franchise, you gotta have the same studio. I think it's gonna be made by the same studio. I think it's got to be a component here.
I think that's fine. James Bond would apply those rules because Never Say Never Again is never included as part of the official Eon James Bond stuff. And Never Say Never Again was the James Bond movie made by a separate studio based off of that writer's legal settlement with Ian Fleming over the rights to Thunderball. So that would line up with that, because basically a different studio made Never Say Never Again. Now Eon Productions now owns the rights to Never Say Never Again, but they still never include it with anything. Like there's a Sean Connery James Bond collection 4K coming out that still doesn't include Never Say Never Again, even though they own the rights to it. Like it's still very much something where they purposely leave that out because Eon Productions did not make it. Now, this is similarly treated by the Casino Royale adaptation that came out in the 1960s. There was a version of Casino Royale that was released in as almost a spoof. And it was 1967. And it says it's the third adaptation. That's weird. Adaptation. Okay. It was on television. Okay. So yeah, then they released a 1967 adaptation that had a cast that included Peter Sellers, Ursula Andress, Orson Welles, and Woody Allen. And David Niven was James Bond. So it was a very strange movie. It is a very, very strange movie, but it is not made by Eon Productions. It is kind of made in a vacuum. It doesn't really have the serious tone of the not necessarily saying that Sean Connery stuff has a serious tone necessarily, but it's kind of a different thing. And so that is also routinely never included in James Bond collections. David Niven is never really presented as James Bond, although the movie has several people call themselves James Bond. Like Peter Sellers plays two characters, one of which is James Bond, Ursula Andress. So there's several people in the movie that call themselves James Bond. So in that regard, it's just not included. So James Bond kind of is the litmus test in a lot of ways, I think, because there are James Bond movies that Eon Productions does not consider part of the James Bond franchise as it sees it. So I think a singular character produced by a singular studio, or if you want to extend that to universe of characters, I think that's as good a definition as any.
So as long as you're okay with counting all the Batman as one franchise, then we've got to put a good definition.
Yeah, there are basically, to me, the shared universe, I think, is what muddies that up. because obviously if there were just, 15 Batman movies that had all been made over time and they only ever had Batman in them, I don't think there'd be as many question that it's a franchise that's just been rebooted a bunch of times. But when you throw in the shared universe aspect, that I think muddies it, because you're kind of like, oh, well, like, that's a decidedly different thing. But now, I mean, the DCEU did bring in Michael Keaton's Batman, so, it does all feed together. But, I don't know.
Here's a weird one. Is Deadpool and Wolverine part of the Foxverse franchise?
Yes.
And part of the MCU?
Yes.
Is Spider-Man No Way Home part of the Sam Raimi franchise?
Sam Raimi's Spider-Man is in it. It's okay. Great question. Is The Flash part of the Burtonverse?
No, I don't know.
Mike,
I don't know.
You said I couldn't say I don't know, so you can't say it either. But it's why it gets muddied, and why I think you kind of just have to take the broad approach. Because if you try to like parse it out and say no, once you reboot it, it's a different franchise. Like it's
okay. Yeah,
I think you run into a lot of muddy waters if you're going to start saying every time you reboot it, it's now a separate franchise. So there's not just one Batman
I don't know why
franchise.
Batman throws me off so much. I don't know why it feels wrong to me to count Burton alongside Nolan. But like the Planet of the Apes franchise, I have no problem counting these new ones and the old ones in the same franchise.
I think it comes down to the nature of the storytelling, because the Planet of the Apes movies are kind of standalone stories for the most part in what they're telling. And there's never a movie that like contradicts necessarily what came before. It's just the next Planet of the Apes movie. It would be kind of like so it's easy to kind of just be like, oh, they're all Planet of the Apes movies. Whereas something like Batman, you have a decided change in character followed, like you like take Batman,
you tell their origin
Adam
again.
West in 1960.
Okay.
Like you have those Burton movies that sort of continue on when you get Kilmer and Clooney. It's kind of all meant to sort of be the same thing. But then you have a very decided reboot, retelling of the story, redoing of everything with Christopher Nolan movies. Then you have another very decided redo with the DCEU, and then you have yet another very decided redo of the Batman. So the problem is that while, say, Planet of the Apes has never had a movie that like establishes or makes it seem like it's different, Batman has. Batman has very decided installments that are like, okay, cool. You're dealing with a very different thing now. James Bond rides this line very, very carefully, but I think the way James Bond tends to avoid it is just that most James Bond movies are standalone stories.
Yeah.
So if you're going to change the actor for James Bond, it doesn't really make it seem like a different thing, because you're just watching the next James Bond adventure.
Yeah, he's not doing the same story again. He's not doing the same.
You're not telling. Yeah. You're not doing Casino Royale again. You're not. I mean, Thunderball obviously would never say never again. Is kind of one of the only instances where they did kind of just do the same story again. But at the same time, that's not part. Like, they don't consider that part of the franchise.
Daniel Craig's run is kind of skewing that now.
Right.
But we're so deep in it, just calling it the James Bond franchise. We're not going to suddenly stop. Like, it's already set up.
Right. You're not going to change that. But it's. So I think Batman I think that's what separates something like.
So I just need to get over it. But the Batman franchise is all.
Basically, like Superman. Superman would be no different. Like, you've got very decidedly different phases of Superman characters, but at the same time, like, it's, for me, there's no definition that would allow for something like James Bond to be considered a franchise that would not allow for Batman to be considered a franchise. Like, the rules that apply to make Bond a franchise all would basically apply to Batman as well. There's no like real way to split it to say that Bond is a franchise and Batman isn't, is kind of how it's kind of like, is a hot dog a sandwich? Maybe not, but there's no definition you can give of sandwich that wouldn't include hot dog, if that makes sense. Like, I don't care if a hot dog's a sandwich. My brain says no just because I'd never consider a hot dog a sandwich, but there's no definition I can give of sandwich that would exclude hot dog. Does that make sense?
Yeah. We've
So, like,
covered this on the podcast before. But
I'm sure we have, but like, so like, I have no dog in the fight, but that's just where I land on it, where I'm just like, because of things like hoagies and subs and, you know, Polish sausage and stuff like that, like, you can't define sandwich in a way that excludes hot dog, but you would never call a hot dog a sandwich. No real person would be like, we're going to get sandwiches and then take you to a hot dog place. You'd think they were insane.
Yeah.
But now I'm going to do that to you just once because of this joke, but I'm going to be like, we're going to get sandwiches, man. And you're going to be like, Andrew, these are hot dogs. And I'm like, yeah, sandwiches. But
I like mustard on my sandwich.
That's fine. In the city of Chicago, it's ketchup that gets you in trouble. But but that's the same thing. Where like, if we acknowledge Bond as a franchise, there is no definition that can be given that would allow Bond to be a franchise that would not kind of also apply to something like Batman or Superman or Spider-Man.
Okay. I think I'm happy enough with this. I think I'm good with this. I think we put this.
Well, and then you run into that, like you said, then you run into those issues like the Flash. Is it part of the Burtonverse and the DCEU, or is it just the DCEU? Like, obviously, I think you could argue that something like The Flash is just the DCEU because you're not really watching the same Batman. But like, Deadpool and Wolverine is a great example of just like, is it Foxverse or is it MCU? And the answer is yes.
Yeah, I don't think referencing other franchises suddenly makes those franchises part of your franchise. Like, I don't think Sam Raimi's Spider-Man is part of the MCU. You know, even though the MCU references him and pulls that character in, they're pulling him in from a different universe. Like, I don't see it that way, but
that's for the scholars to debate.
Yeah. Isn't that us? Isn't that
not us normal
That's not
people.
what this podcast is. All right. Well, I think that's more or less settled.
I would never
come
call
back,
you a scholar to your face.
Come back next week for the next installment in our fake band month. We will be talking about Rockstar. The fake band there is Steel Dragon, and man, I can't wait to revisit that movie. And until then, just remember that maybe not every movie is great.
But all movies have greatness.
Thank you to Mark Benavides for singing our theme song. You can check him out on Instagram at NotThatMarkAnthony. Thanks to Mitch for the music. Check him out on Twitter at I'm a Biggie Boy. Check our show notes for the SoundCloud link. Check out our store on TeePublic for some best of the rest merch. And if you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend. That's the only way we grow. Follow us on social media at BOTRcast. Thank you. Andrew, who is that last person in the cast? John Melendez as constant masturbating rocker?
Yeah. There's when Chaz reveals, when they kind of try to out Chaz as a giant dork, a bunch of people in the crowd start admitting to stuff, and there's a guy who goes, I masturbate constantly.
Oh,
and
okay.
you're not allowed to pull that clip out of context and put it like at the end of the episode or anything. You're not allowed to do that to me. You can't. Can't
add that one to the soundboard.
No, you cannot. That would be very mean, and I trust you to not do that. Yeah, brother. Yeah. I hate you. Anyway, that's who that is. Like, same with the corduroy pants rocker, the magazine school editor. The school magazine editor.
I was thinking, like, I don't remember them cutting to a guy who's always masturbating, but he just said, okay, that makes a little more sense.